Hey audio team, hope you're doing well. I want to take a few minutes just to give my thoughts slash impressions on the new PA. It's a great new PA. There's so much more separation, there's so much more clarity, and I've been really enjoying mixing on it over the last few weeks. What my approach has been is to take our existing template with all of the routing but put all of the processing to zero. I'm starting pretty much from a blank slate. All of the EQs are flat and all of the compressors are at zero. And the two areas that have really stood out to me is how we need to EQ differently and compress differently. The first thing I'll talk about is the EQ. Apart from the kick, which needs a tune or a reskin, or we need to change our kick, where I've had to carve out 8, 10, 12 dB from 2, 3, 4, 500 hertz just to get rid of that boxiness. Everything else pretty much like snare, high pass, flat. Hi-hat, high pass, flat. Toms, high pass, flat. Overheads, high pass, flat. On the toms, maybe just dialing out a little bit of that low resonance that they get a bit boomy, but apart from that, it's all been flat. Bass has been flat, except for I've been running a shelf from 400 down and dropping maybe 4 or 5 dB out there. Keeps the string noise present, but still there's enough in that low end, and you can hear the notes the bass player is playing, which is a great change from what we used to experience, where you'd kind of feel the low end, you'd hear that there's low end there, but you just wouldn't have any idea what note the bass player was playing. It was just nondescript low end. So that's a huge improvement. And a big part of that is the fact that everything is now phase aligned. On that, the kick in mic, I've had to reverse the polarity. And interestingly, I tried this so many times with the old PA, but because things were just out of alignment, didn't matter what you did with polarity, nothing seemed to improve it. But with this new PA, with everything in phase, if any of our sources are out of phase, you'll notice it. And so that polarity flip on the kick in made a huge world of difference. Something else with EQ is the low mids are far more accurately represented. And so previously I've been rolling vocals off around 150. I've ended up, the first week I was on, I rolled them off around 200 with the female vocals at 250. And then this last week I rolled them all off at 250, and finding that works really, really well. Something else with guitars, electric guitars, rolling them off around 200 has worked for me. And something that a lot of people don't know is that a guitar amp will really only produce up to around 5K. And if it's a vintage valve amp like I own and occasionally play, the amplifier itself starts to roll off around 4K. So I experimented with that on Sunday, rolled the electric guitars off at 5K, didn't lose any of the presence or the chime or the openness that you want from a nice electric guitar sound. And A-Bing them, you don't hear that much of a difference when they're on their own, but then you put them in the mix, you roll off the lows and the highs, and it just makes all of this space. Something that I think we'll need to be mindful of is how things build up in the low mids, because we've got accurate representation in the low mids, and often we get a lot of low mids from the band on stage. We need to treat that a little bit more carefully. The topic of compression, this PA likes things way more open. And so the first Sunday I mixed, I just compressed way too hard. And going through sound check and going through rehearsal, kind of having in my head the dynamic range of where everything needed to sit so that I could get all of the elements into the room in a way where they competed the least amount possible, and not have to revert to the good old like head on a stick vocal, and you know the band's there because you can see them on the stage, but no other reason. Like having to really tightly control the dynamics on the old PA, that just does not work on the new PA. We can treat things far more musically. We can allow things to breathe a lot more. And in fact, when we do allow things to breathe a lot more, it just sounds a whole lot better, and it's a lot more pleasant to listen to. And so we can allow a lot more of the dynamics from the musicians to really come through in the PA, and things sound way more open, still sound full. And if we're controlling our low mids and putting things in their space sonically, then we actually don't need to compress anywhere nearly as hard to get things sitting nicely in the mix. Something that I did notice is some of those big moments do feel really big, but we need to be okay with that if we're going to be running a more open dynamic range. What we don't want to be doing is getting to those big moments and then turning down the console, because then we actually lose the impact of that moment. And I've been talking to Pastor Nathan, Pastor Beck, Pastor Andy, just about the volume of our worship and where those levels sit. And they've been really happy with where we as a team and where I've been targeting those levels. The only real feedback I've got from them on some weeks is it's actually just felt a little bit too quiet and felt like there just wasn't enough in the room. So I feel where we'll go with the new PA, with everything far more open, we'll likely move our dB targets up slightly, but at the same time we'll open our crest factor target. So the average will sit up, but the dynamic range will be wider, so therefore loudness will be lower, and then we'll end up in a similar spot as far as feel goes. Nothing else that really comes to mind, so I'll see you at the Christmas services. If not, I hope you and your family have a great Christmas and a happy new year. Always make sure that you're reaching out if you've got any questions about anything that's going on, and see you soon.